The years of bloodshed had finally ended. The war between the humans and the demons that lasted for decades left a terrifying record in the history books as the Age of Destruction. And the day when the victory of the humans has been written down in the books. A neck was hung at the front gate of the Baskervilles, famous for their iron-blooded swordsman. Vickier van Baskerville, Hound of the Baskervilles. The illegitimate son of Hugo le Baskerville, the head of the Baskerville family. He was falsely charged and framed for associating with the demon clan and was sentenced to the guillotine. Vickier struggled, all his faithful leaded to his demise. Spying, assassination, kidnapping, blackmail, smuggling. For the sake of his family, he crossed over 500 dangerous missions, but in the end, they forsook him. At the moment of death, he decided. If he were ever to live again, after he caught his prey, he'll not live as a hound again. A baby's cry echoed throughout the large room. The head of the house, the Marquis Hugo Baskerville, raised a nonchalant eye and scanned the children born this year. There aren't any trash that look useful. Hugo, passing through the cribs in the nursery, stopped at one point. Unlike the other siblings who are almost 6 to 8 months old, a being who has just entered this room after having just completed 100 days. The baby wasn't crying. The baby was Vickier, who was regressed as a baby. Hugo looked at baby and relaxed his complexion a little. Eventually, Hugo spoke to caretaker in the city behind him. Move the children to the cradle of the swords. The children of the Baskervilles are put to the test from the moment they are born. From cradle to the grave. The first of these tests began right away. What is the Cradle of Swords? It is a unique rite of passage for the Baskervilles. Countless knives are planted like a maze on a round hill and a baby is dropped in the middle. The baby is trapped in the maze created by the blade and wandered through it. Even if it moves, he gets cut by the blades all over his body. In this environment, babies have to crawl on the floor and through a labyrinth of needles. It is only when you immerse yourself in the river Styx outside of the labyrinth that you become a Baskerville in its true sense. The Styx water is only effective for children under 1 year of age. If you soak your body in this river, your whole body becomes as hard as steel. Of course, the power of this river is not infinite. If one baby sucks up most of her power, the other sucks in relatively less since the power remaining is lesser. In order to get Styx river first, babies need to head out of the wall of blades. Surprisingly, the child was going straight through the cradle of needles, which were spiraled like a snail's shell. The child's body is already covered in blood. Instead of going round and round on a relatively safe road, he directly squeezes into the small gap between the blades. There was a knife mark on his white, soft cheek. Everyone in the family was overwhelmed by the spirit of this child who was less than 100 days old. It was the same with Hugo les Baskerville, the head of Baskerville, the iron-blooded swordsman. Before long, the child was completely out of the maze and he threw himself into the river Styx. The secret river, which flows only in the holy land of the Baskerville family, has the effect of increasing mana, purifying one's aura, and making one's body as tough and hard as steel just by soaking one's body. The river water started turning red. The baby knew the effect of the secret river and he tried to monopolize the effect as the effect was limited. The water was passing through the cut in his body. But he was enduring everything for the revenge. The caretaker were afraid because the baby was in the river for more than 7 minutes. But this determination of baby made Hugo excited and happy. He called the baby to come out. The baby didn't have enough time as he was out of breath, so he absorbed the water by drinking. And he was drowning as he was out of breath. But in the next moment Hugo was holding the baby. He asked the caretaker about the baby name. And the caretaker responded, Vickier van Baskerville. Next day, Vickier was lying in the darkness of the shared nursery. And he was thinking over each situation before returning. At 8 years old. In the world, he was a talent worthy of being called a genius. But within the Baskervilles, he was just mediocre. At 20 years old, he started putting himself into action in earnest. He mainly took on missions such as assassination, spying, and subjugation of barbarians. At 29 years old, he felt that he had reached his limit in swordsmanship compared to his siblings. at 39 years old. He won the war for the Empire. It was a valuable victory for the humans. At 40 years old, he was rewarded for his loyalty. The reward was false accusation and the guillotine's blade. Back into the present. Vikir opened his eyes and found himself in the nursery, which confirms that he successfully absorbed the Styx River. In his bed, he found a box. Vikir stared at the box next to him. Did he have any memories like this before he regressed? There was nothing. He lifted his head with difficulty and looked out of the cradle. Vikir's cradle, quite far from the other cradles. Something doesn't feel right. And his instincts were right. Before long, the box was squeezed and something poked out its head. Two triangular-headed snakes were exposing their thick bodies out of the box. Bloody mamba? It is a rare species that is rarely found in the world. Vikir half opened his mouth in amazement, and was thinking who released this snake here? Vikir, who was bewildered for a moment, soon grasped the situation. Two bloody mambas are coming towards him, and their red mouth, gleaming fangs, seemed already covered in blood. Vikir stretched out his hand. He had dealt with reptilian monsters, especially those in the form of snakes, many times, and of course he was well aware of their weaknesses. He could kill them with the body of a newborn child. Vikir stretched out his two hands and grabbed a poisonous snake each. Snakes struggled, but it was all in vain for snakes. The next morning, the people of Baskerville was shocked when they found the child sleeping peacefully next to the dead vipers. All the nannies who worked the night shift were tortured and executed, and a really strict guard was set up in the nursery. The culprit who released the poisonous snake was never found. But only one person knew the truth. And 8 years have passed since then. 8 years have passed. Vikir van Baskerville had turned 8 years old and, as is the case with children in the Baskervilles, was taking his classes. The students were learning about swordsmanship. A swordsman who does not know how to load mana into a sword is a sword beginner. A state that knows how to load mana into the tip of a sword, but the aura raised by doing so is weak like a gas, is a sword expert. The state where the aura rising from the sword becomes sticky and dense like a liquid is called sword graduator. And the state where the aura becomes hard like a solid and the shape can be changed according to the caster's will is called sword master. Vikir was immersed in his thoughts, and suddenly heard a voice. His half-siblings were calling him garbage, and they started to tease him. In the previous life, these guys were the one who stabbed Vikir when he was running away from the defamation. The three triplet planned on testing Vikir's ability, and covered his nose and mouth with the hand. 1 minute passed, nothing happened. 3 minutes passed, nothing happened. 10 minutes passed, nothing happened. The triplets were kinda scared, so freed the Vikir. When one of the triplet removed his hand over Vikir's face. His hand was bitten, blood was coming out. As the triplet were leaving, Vikir stopped them. The provoked triplet attacked Vikir with the sword, but it was all in vain as his body was made out of steel. Vikir punished his brothers. Blood was coming out of the triplet's body. Then Vikir left the room, and before leaving he said that only one of triplet can leave the room, and it's up to triplet to decide whom they want to kill. In the castle at Hugo Place. The butler gave the report about the Morgue clan and Ruby Mine, but Hugo wasn't much interested in that. Butler gave another report about the children that Vikir scored top in evaluation, which made the Hugo excited. Then the butler gave report about the triplet fight with the Vikir. Hugo became astounded as it was strange to hear. After the incident, Vikir was called at Hugo's palace. Hugo asked him about the incident where he disabled his 3 siblings. But Vikir replied and said that now they have all been treated. When Hugo said that the siblings are ready to forgive you, Vikir said, "Forgiveness is an excuse for the weak who can't do anything themselves." The same excuse was once given by Hugo to his sister who was a nun. This brought a devil smile on Hugo's face as he was excited. Hugo said that weakness is a sin and only stronger can survive. Hugo ordered his butler to provide any snack to Vikir he wants. And Vikir asked for chocolate and bid his leave. And before leaving, Hugo said one more thing to Vikir that don't lose to the direct descendants. From the food storage 6Kir requested for the bloody beans which can produce 100 liters of chocolate from a single bean. For fools, they may think that Vikir loves chocolate, but the real motive was only known to Vikir. Next on the day, a huge catastrophe occurred that's never happened at the Baskerville clan before. In this world, the Baskerville family is referred to as Berserker family. Since the early age, students from this family are needed to build up stamina by running a steep mountain. And only at the allocated time they can rest or eat. And for sleep, they need to sleep alongside a monster corpse for adjusting tough environments. And this period ends when the student reaches 8 years of age and the young hounds become ready for deadly evaluations. And today the young hounds are gathered near the Le Rouge et Le Noir mountain. The teacher Pavlov, also known as Shadow Dog, instructed the young masters about the practical evaluation, where they have to survive for a month and they have to hunt large and strong monsters. Then the teacher Pavlov told about the points. The points for being successful in surviving is 10 points. For surviving without disability is 30 points. For failing others with surviving is 50 points. For surviving after defeating monster is 70 points, and for if all the conditions are fulfilled then 90 points. And for stealing others' badges also awards extra points. And he further added leaving the designated area is not advised. The young masters looked at Vikir and started gossiping about him. While the teacher instructed to not go to the mountain as it was outside the designated area, Vikir was excited about that, like he was planning something devilish. Suddenly the teacher rang the bell and the test started. As the bell rang, everyone ran to their area and the real battle was about to start. All the young masters or students were forming plan on surviving. Some are planning for hiding and some are planning for stealing the spot. In the exam, it's not encouraged to kill someone, but it was also not prohibited. When everyone was securing the spot, Vikir went to the restricted area, which made the shadow dogs who are supposed to keep an eye on young masters astonished. Vikir approached a lifeless tree and planned to take a break while others were fighting among each other for the points. He built a shed, digged some hole and came out for food only, which made the shadow dog bored. He thought that Vikir was genius, but now after this, he thought Vikir is a fake and there is no benefit in observing him, so he left. But Vikir was only doing this for sending the shadow dog away. Vikir was digging for some specific purpose, but the shadow dog had no idea, and now he started the real hunting, which could be the starting of the end of Baskerville family. Few days later, inside the restricted area, a young man is casually roaming as he knew the place well from his past life. While strolling, he found the burnt root for which he was looking. The burnt root indicated that someone's habitat is near for whom Vikir was looking. After a distance, he found the burning stool, and the guy who dropped this was Hellhound. Once bitten by Hellhound, there is no chance of surviving. The lookout monster that swallowed the hellfires of the oil world, the Hellhound. In the previous life, defeating the Hellhound at the age of 18 was difficult even for Vikir. And at the age of 8 was even more impossible, but Vikir knew a way through which even a child could kill the Hellhound. Hellhound's first weakness is that they can only move in straight lines. It's difficult for them to change directions. Second weakness: they can cross the water even if it may be a very shallow depth of water. It slowed down the Hellhound. And the last weakness: opening their mouth while running. The Hellhound was coming toward Vikir, and Vikir threw bloody bean in his mouth. The chocolate is a poison for the Hellhound, and a bloody bean which can make 100 liters of chocolate was more than enough to kill this monster. Vikir gave a devilish laugh and said that even the hounds of hell can't win against chocolate. And pierce the Hellhound at his soft spot means kidney, to gain the XP or karma which is accumulated in the body. His body became stronger than before, and it was only a matter of time for him to become stronger than the previous self. According to Vikir, it was sure that he'll win the exam when he'll show the monster with B+ difficulty. And he was planning for the enormous award he is going to ask, about whom no one knows in this era except him. He took the head of Hellhound, but suddenly he heard some noises, and found that he is in midst of the Hellhounds which came here after hearing the crying of dying hound. They came here to avenge the Hellhound, but Vikir was stronger than before, and he killed another Hellhound with just a slash. Suddenly all the Hellhound acted strangely as if they were afraid of something. For a second, Vikir thought that the Hellhounds are afraid of his bloodlust, but it was someone else. Someone strong who was standing behind Vikir. Someone with sharp teeth, purple aura and 3 head. It was none other than Cerberus. The Cerberus has a difficulty of A+, and it wasn't supposed to be there. But when Vikir looked closely at the Cerberus, he found that the Cerberus has been shot multiple times, and he was bleeding. Someone was trying to hunt him. There were only few tribes who can do this, and one of them were barbarian. This was a golden opportunity for Vikir because if he killed the A+ monster, his power will increase with multiple folds. And there was one thing that Vikir was hiding. He was hiding his true potential at the Baskerville. He already reached a level of sword expertise, and he also mastered the Baskerville third technique, and he was strong enough to be compared with the adult hounds. Vikir ran toward the Cerberus and attacked him head-on. The aura from the sword was flowing like a gas. Vikir has refined his swordmanship before regression, and there was no unnecessary movements in his techniques. His equipments were working well against the injured Cerberus, and his body has been strengthened by the Styx River. And he thought it was working. But no. A moment he let his guard down, allowed Cerberus to attack with his claw. It slashed his sword. Vikir was smashed into the tree, and the blood came out from his mouth. He lost consciousness for a moment. He woke up within seconds and Cerberus was approaching him. He was injured and thought he lost his left arm, but because of the effect of Styx River it was only a claw mark on his left arm. Cerberus ran toward him, but he dashed and moved from that place. The difficulty was high, but a best hunter must find a way to hunt. And the best decision right now was to escape from it. He ran and ran, but Cerberus was following him. He saw fences, and he thought if he crossed the fences, everything will be according to his plan. And it'll be his victory. He jumped over the fences, but the Cerberus broke the fences and kept following him. Vikir ran and started for searching something that can be useful. As he was searching, he found it. But the Cerberus was just behind him, running with a faster pace. Vikir jumped. His face was just few centimeters far from the Cerberus's mouth. There was something as a cover on the ground. The Cerberus stepped on it and fell into the hole filled of wooden spears like the cradle of the swords. Both the Hellhound and the Cerberus are canid monsters which are weaker against the chocolate. Vikir has laid the trap for the Hellhound which he used to kill the Cerberus. The wooden spears were covered with bloody bean which acted like a poison for Cerberus. But even this much wasn't enough to kill a high-ranking demon. So Vikir shooted a wooden spear covered with aura at the Cerberus. But a wooden spear is not effective against a demon. Cerberus came toward Vikir. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and fall. In the 7th step the Cerberus fell on the ground. The wooden spear this time was laced with Bloody Mamba's venomous fang that won't let the target move more than 7 steps once it's bit. Finally all the heads were dead and Vikir absorbed the XP or karma. Now there was only one last task for Vikir to do. The Cerberus are gatekeepers that protect their territories, means there was a dungeon nearby. A dungeon is a mysterious place that harbor treasures and sometimes powerful monsters use them as liars. Vikir covered his body with the feces of Cerberus to avoid fighting small monsters. And he noted some sign like dried soil, rotten leaves, moist roots, footprint and drools for backtracking it. He kept walking and he found the dungeon which would have been found in 10 years. The dungeon wasn't cleared and it was dark. Vikir smiled as he entered the dungeon.